Lastasha Harlan was a 15-year-old African-American girl who lived in South Central Los Angeles. She went into a grocery/liquor store in her neighborhood on March 16, 1991 to purchase a bottle of orange juice for $1.79. The proprietress, Mrs. Sunjadu, accuses her of stealing, pulls her across the counter. Lastasha responds by punching her. A fight ensues. Lastasha bends down to pick up the orange juice, and Mrs. Stu has stood up with a gun in her hand. Lastasha turns to walk out of the store, and she's shot in the back of the head.
This particular incident comes to represent all these grievances that have been building up.
A jury convicted Dew of voluntary manslaughter. A pre-sentence report recommended the maximum, 16 years. But Judge Joyce Carlin imposed probation, a $500 fine, no jail time.
This is literally 10 years after the killing of Vincent Chin. Wasn't the equivalent to Vincent Chin Lastasha Harlan's? But in this case, certain Asian Americans organized to support Sunjadu.
And instead of being seen as a part of the multiracial coalition, suddenly Korean Americans were seen as just like those racist L.A. cops who beat up Rodney King. People on the ground within the Korean American and African American communities were trying to signal this could be a problem. Then all hell broke loose.
The verdict stunned almost everyone except the 4 officers acquitted of beating Rodney King. Sheriff's deputies escorted them from the courthouse to face a hostile crowd.
Many people of color, and African Americans in particular, were disappointed, frustrated, agitated about social conditions, about the lack of jobs, about policing in Los Angeles. And so you have an African American community that in some ways is like an immigrant community because we've never been completely integrated within the society.
In March of 1991, the world watches as Los Angeles police officers beat a 26-year-old African American man named Rodney King.
Back then in the 90s, I was just a lawyer. When a number of us who practiced in that area saw that video, our reaction was, well, it's about time the rest of the world see what happens on the streets of South LA. There's competition for jobs. There's competition for housing.
Close to 70% of businesses were owned by Korean Americans. There was a notion that the shop owners had been disrespectful, had been dismissive.
Their prices are high, their attitude is wrong, and they just don't seem to have any respect for the black community.
In the Korean community, there's an anxiety because there was a lot of news about assaults, robberies, shootings that were being reported in language news. But if you read the LA Times Metro section, all you read about when it came to Koreans was how rude they were, how racist they were.
What we see is a lot of media trying to play up Asian and black tensions.
I'm sure that's much.
The video introduces the different impacts and reasons behind the LA riots. It talks about the injustices that led to the community outrages, as well as the various decisions each community made to either keep the peace or protest to bring back order. On April 29th, 1992, a week-long period of rioting and chaos swept through South and Central Koreatown and other neighborhoods of Los Angeles, otherwise known as the LA Riots. The initial unrest was sparked by the brutal beating of Rodney King, a man who was stopped and pulled over for driving under the influence. Once pulled over, he was then brutally beaten by 4 white policemen who ended up being acquitted for their action. This preceded a long history of police brutality amongst blacks in various communities, also leading to the unprecedented fear that grew between blacks and Koreans due to the fact that there was also besides social, there was also economic conditions that sought the LA riots to occur. Koreans owned 70% of the businesses that occupied the black neighborhoods. Some saying finding it difficult to find jobs because of racial and prejudice mindsets that some Koreans may have had at the time. Though, while further listening to the video, you will find that it's also cultural differences. Key quote from a Korean shop owner is that they wanted to hire their own people. But by hiring their own people, it also makes it difficult for others in the community to receive help. See, Koreans were posting newspapers about incidents that happened in the black community where, for instance, you will see in the video that 2 black men robbed a Korean woman. And then in the LA newspaper, you would see Koreans are racist and they're rude, and the media did play a part in pitting the 2 groups against each other. Both groups sought out mayoral help, each group going to the mayor to enact peace between the 2 groups. But once the trial for Rodney King ended and the 4 policemen were found not guilty, all hell broke loose.